that Hamas particularly does this, and I think that's a war crime on the part of Hamas. And clearly, Hamas is engaging in war crimes when it sells.
War is a crime. I mean, it seems like a silly argument when people go to war. I mean, there are certain things that are beyond the pale. This seems like, I mean, it was a normal war. People die in war. It's a horrible thing. But
I mean, we have developed laws of war precisely to restrain the inhumanity of war. We don't allow chemical weapons.
But I don't know how else you respond to when you have I mean, what if Canada fired 4,000 rockets into America, or Mexico, which is an even better analogy because we actually did steal the land from Mexico. I would submit that Israel did not steal anybody's land. This is another thing I've heard the last couple of weeks, words like occupy.
You'll want to stay locked in for this one, because it's raw, unapologetic, and setting the internet on fire for good reason. Bill Maher just clashed with a guest who crossed a line most won't dare, questioning Israel's very existence. Yes, he actually went there.
Land they gave back.
Yeah.
They gave back.
Right.
Gaza is
well,
not
they withdrew their
occupied.
forces and settlements from within Gaza.
Okay, but the reason there's a blockade is to stop shit like this from happening.
No, I agree with that.
That's the whole point. They gave it back. They said, you know what? Make your life your own.
This conflict right now could end right this second if Hamas were to put down its weapons and surrender unconditionally. I know, it would.
Armed with razor-sharp wit and pinpoint precision, Maher didn't waste a second. This wasn't some polite policy disagreement. It was a full-blown denial of a nation's right to exist. And Maher, he didn't back down, he came swinging.
I mean, we can't have a conversation about the deeper context. We have to have that conversation. That does not justify in any way what happened. You said there's a siege on Gaza. That's right. There has also been a blockade since 2007. That is part of this context. Again, not a justification, never a justification.
Well, a blockade from a land they...
His response wasn't loud or dramatic. It was calculated and lethal. No shouting. No theatrics. Just steady, surgical dismantling. Maher didn't debate. He deconstructed.
It's always been the reality of this conflict. Yes. If the Arabs were to put down their weapons, this goes back to the 1930s, before the creation of the State of Israel. If the Arabs put down their weapons, there would be peace. If the Jews put down their weapons, there'd be no more Jews in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well,
What followed felt like a mental chess match. Every baseless statement, obliterated. Every inconsistency, dragged into the light. The guest stumbled. Maher didn't just win the exchange. He delivered a brutal truth bomb the internet needed. Tired of filtered narratives? Smash that subscribe, because Maher's next point might just shake you.
Very important to understand that the Israeli strategy up until last weekend had been to bolster Hamas's control of Gaza. There was a report that came out of Benjamin Netanyahu talking to a meeting of the Likud party in 2019 saying,
Yes.
and I quote, "Our strategy, anyone who wants to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state has to bolster Hamas and give them money. This is how we keep the Palestinians divided, and therefore it will never be a Palestinian state." This is not someone who is interested in peace with the Palestinians. I'm sorry. And
Well,
this policy goes back to the 1970s.
Well, that's coming after 75 years of being attacked.
The question here,
so it's not coming in a vacuum.
I totally agree. I would say
He opened with a gut punch of a question. If another country launched thousands of rockets at the US, would we sit back and show restraint? No chance. We'd retaliate instantly, and the world would expect it. So why is Israel held to a different standard? For Maher, the real scandal is punishing a nation for defending itself like any other.
I made that point for context. I think it's important to understand that that Israel at home truly is robust. But, you know, I don't think that's a defense for Israel engaging in possible war crimes in Gaza or engaging...
Well, Gaza fired 4,000 rockets into Israel. What would you say Israel should have done instead of what they did?
So
how could you not commit?
So, I mean, international lawyers are pretty clear that they have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to respond at military targets, but there was sense that the response was probably a war crime because it did not sufficiently avoid civilian casualties.
But they purposely put the rockets in civilian places. That's their
Yeah,
strategy.
well, likewise, Israel's defense ministry is in a civilian area. I mean, both sides do this partly because they're crowded countries. I do think that Hamas particularly does this, and I think that's a war crime.
Then came the go-to excuse. It's retaliation for occupation. Maher didn't blink. He tore it apart. Terrorism isn't justified by grievances. The Gaza blockade. A response to constant rocket fire, not random oppression. And while Israel has relaxed restrictions in pursuit of peace, that part. Media silence. Why? Because balance doesn't trend. Blame does.
That Hamas particularly does this, and I think that's a war crime on the part of Hamas. And clearly, Hamas is engaging in war crimes when it shells.
War is a crime. I mean, it seems like a silly argument when people go to war. I mean, there are certain things that are beyond the pale. This seems like, I mean, it was a normal war. People die in war. It's a horrible thing. But
I mean, we have developed laws of war precisely to restrain the inhumanity of war. We don't allow chemical weapons.
But
and
I
we
don't know how
allow,
else you respond
fighting
to
civilians.
when you are for. I mean, what if Canada fired 4,000 rockets into America or Mexico, which is an even better analogy because we actually did steal the land from Mexico? I would submit that Israel did not steal anybody's land. This is another thing I've heard in the last couple of weeks. Words.
Then Maher dropped the hammer. This isn't a land dispute. Hamas doesn't want compromise. They want Israel wiped off the map. Even after Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, the rockets kept raining down. That's not occupation, it's a call for destruction. And the lie of both sides are the same. Maher exposed it. One side grieves its dead. The other glorifies them. That's not equality, it's a moral canyon.
Well, I want to go over some of the history, but first I read your column on it, even-handed and brilliant as usual. But let me just quote you off the bat. You say, at home, Israel has a robust democracy that gives more rights to Arab citizens than its neighbors do. This was after all a war with Gaza. Thank God Israel treats its Arab citizens better than Egypt, Syria, or Saudi Arabia treat their Arab citizens. I didn't see much of that in the press, so I was glad to see.
Things got uncomfortable fast. Maher admitted Netanyahu plays political hardball, keeping Palestinian factions fractured by tolerating Hamas's presence. He didn't excuse it. He explained the brutal logic behind it. Middle Eastern politics isn't clean, it's survival-based. Israel's not perfect, but it's still a democracy. Arab citizens vote, hold office, and live under law. Try finding that level of freedom in its neighboring regimes. Maher's final truth. Outrage without context isn't activism, it's ignorance. And ignorance fixes nothing.